Welcome to Storytime with Quefish. I am going to be reading from GayDemonicDisaster again. Kirsty. But I'm settling in for more of like a happy, calm kind of thing. I've got some chocolate and some milk, and then once that's done, I'm gonna bust into the plum wine. So I'll link that in case you're interested. I don't even know. So, yay! Back. Had some chocolate, had some milk. Have not gotten into the plum wine. Figure I'll do that later. So, as I said, we're going to be reading more from GayDemonicDisaster, aka Scrap Heap Challenge, aka Kirsty. This one is General Audiences, Roomba of Doom. Crowley gets an unusual summoning and a new pet minion of chaos. Inspired by a meme, Ouija board rugs. It's all fun and games until the Roomba accidentally summons a demon. I'm sure you can all see where this is going. Anyhow, this was intended as a one-off short comedy, but then between me, Kirsty, Sin, and several other Good Omens fan friends, and my other half, we came up with so many more ridiculous shenanigans that Crowley, Aziraphale, and Crowley's demonic hellspawn can get up to together that I decided to make this a weekly updated series. I'll add new chapters every Tuesday until I run out of material. I do not guarantee that I will be reading them on Tuesdays. Well, I'll be reading them on Tuesdays, but I don't guarantee that I'll be recording them on Tuesdays. Short chapters, vignettes, easy to read while waiting for the bus, in your lunch break, or before bed. Chapter 1, The Summoning. Aziraphale's eyes fluttered open at an unusual noise, something whirring and mechanical. He furrowed his brow in confusion and, feeling the warmth of Crowley's skin under his arm, mumbled and snuggled closer to his demon under the covers, spooning up to the comfort of his hard body and nuzzled into the back of his neck, trying to let sleep take him again. Something bumped the bed slightly and beeped. The whirring noise was louder. Aziraphale frowned in his doze and cuddled the demon tighter. There was another bump and a beep after a moment, and Aziraphale lifted his head to look around. He let go of Crowley and peered over the side of the bed. A robot vacuum cleaner was whirring around on the floor, working its way along the edge of the bed. It had googly eyes stuck to the top of it. Suddenly, Crowley was up on all fours across Aziraphale's middle, glaring down at the Roomba. Oi! What did I tell you, Bob? Not in the bedroom when I've got company over. Get out! The Roomba actually stopped, turned to face Crowley, and beeped apologetically, inasmuch as a beep can be considered apologetic. Lights flickered on the top of it. It turned and made its way slowly toward the door. Aziraphale looked down at Crowley where he straddled across him. Crowley looked back sheepishly. Sorry, he's a nosy little bastard. Dirty little voyeur. I must have left the door open when I got up for a drink last night. He usually knows to give me a wide berth, at least before 11 a.m. He knows? Crowley cringed and nodded. He actually stopped when you shouted at him and left. Crowley nodded again. He's, sentient. Sentient? Really? That's not just some clever AI, then? How does he know what AI is? Crowley shook his head. I kind of did a thing. He sighed and laid back on the bed again. Aziraphale looked at him curiously. Crowley realized that the angel wasn't going to let this drop purely by the expression on his face. Coffee first, Angel, then Roomba, okay? A little while later, they were relaxing in dressing gowns on the sofa with coffee and croissants, watching Bob trundle around the living room, googly eyes wobbling comically. Aziraphale threw a crumb in front of the little vacuum cleaner, and it changed course slightly to intercept and devour it. "Stop throwing crumbs on my floor," Crowley groused. "But he's hungry. He likes it." Crowley rolled his eyes. "That's as may be, but don't pander to the little bastard. He's just as happy on dust and dead leaves. Don't spoil him with croissants. He'll start begging you if you do that, and I'll never hear the last of it." "So," Aziraphale took a sip of coffee and curled up against Crowley. "How did you come to make a vacuum cleaner sentient, love?" Crowley had been causing minor inconveniences for commuters by jamming chewing gum in the ticket readers at Oxford Circus Station when it happened. A distinct tugging feeling in the pit of his stomach that heralded a familiar and yet oft-dreaded event. He was about to get summoned. His eyes went wide, and his eyes went wide, and he opened his mouth to curse just as the power caught with a jolt and yanked him out of one plane of existence and into another. He whirled through the firmament in a haze of annoyed molecules. Fuck! He landed and caught his balance, head spinning. He blinked and stood straighter, getting his bearings, ready to raise literal hell and yell at whichever irritating idiot had decided to summon him this time. "Right, you bastard. Let's get this over with. Why the hell did you summon me? And what deal with the Dark Lord did you have in mind for your mortal soul?" He trailed off, uncertain. He wasn't in a circle for once. He was in a living room. Alone. No humans anywhere. Just a slightly gothically styled lounge with black modular sofa, big flat screen TV, red and black flocked wallpaper, candelabra-style wall sconces, the occasional sculpted dragon ornament, a coffee table with a pack of tarot cards on it next to a stack of Wiccan Today magazines, and a Roomba trundling around on the floor. On the floor was a rug. It was, presumably ironically, decorated in the style of a Ouija board. It was glowing faintly, as was the Roomba, which was trundling around it. Crowley saw the letters making up his true name glow and fade back to normal again before his eyes. What? How the hell? But there were rules regardless. He could feel it. He tried walking towards the door, reached for the door handle, and felt the snap of power bite at his fingertips. So the rules still held, regardless of who or what had summoned him, even if accidentally in a freak occurrence that was probably a millions to one chance. He had to carry out the wishes of the summoner before he was allowed to leave. This was going to create some difficulty. He stared at the Roomba. The Roomba continued to be a Roomba. He stared at it some more. The Roomba bumped into the coffee table, beeped, spun a little, and trundled onward. Crowley collapsed onto the sofa and put his head in his hands. What the fuck was he going to do now? He drew his hands slowly down his face in frustration and followed the device with his eyes. It trundled across the room and bumped into a cabinet that contained some glasses and bottles of alcohol. Well, that's one question answered anyhow. Crowley stood, stepped around the machine, opened a bottle of Talisker? Alcohol, and poured himself a generous measure. He lifted the glass at the Roomba, in thanks for its suggestion. Cheers. He sighed and downed the lot. He refilled it again and sat back down on the sofa with the bottle in one hand and tumbler in the other to think things over. He drank a bit more and then ambled around the lounge, testing the windows and getting the same sharp snap of controlling power from them as he would have from the edges of a summoning circle. He was bound to this room until he had done whatever the Roomba demanded of him. The slight problem being that the irritating little electrical device had no way to demand anything of him. So in theory, he was now bound here for the rest of eternity. This was a new one on Crowley. He sat back down, opened the bottle of alcohol, Talisker, again, and hovered it over the tumbler for a second before rethinking and simply putting the bottle straight to his lips and taking a gulp. He waved at the TV, and the channel hopped the satellite service until he found an old episode of The Golden Girls to watch. He lounged back on the sofa and wondered what to do. 2 episodes later, something boring came on, so he channel hopped a bit more while the Roomba continued to buzz its way around the living room floor. All of a sudden, Crowley spotted something and backtracked a couple of channels until he hit it again. He stared at the screen, then looked down at the Roomba, comprehension dawning slowly through the haze of alcohol. God, I wish I could do this voice. "Number 5 is alive," the TV announced. Crowley stared at the now sentient robot on the screen. Short circuit. Of course. Crowley narrowed his eyes and stared at the Roomba, which was now returning to its charging point. It plugged in with a satisfied little beep and powered down, lights flashing on top of it as it recharged. Crowley took another gulp of whiskey and snapped his fingers at it. The pattern of the lights on the top of the machine changed slightly. Crowley got the feeling that the little machine was watching him, although with what, he couldn't actually say. "Come on, dude, you gotta give me something to work with here. What do you want?" The Roomba disengaged from its charging point with an aura of resigned reluctance and ambled back over to the Ouija board. It went to one letter, paused, flashed, went to another, paused, flashed, and carried on as Crowley watched, intrigued. It spelled out, "What are you doing? Get off my floor. I just vacuumed there." Crowley stared at it incredulously. It appeared to stare back at him, indignant. Crowley fumbled for words. He sighed and sat back on the sofa, lifting his feet off the floor. "Look, dude, hang on. What should I call you? Do you have a name?" The Roomba appeared to be thinking for a moment, lights on the top of it flashing in different patterns. It spun around and went to the letter B, flashed, O, flash, B again, flash, then stopped and spun around to face the demon. "Bob." The Roomba flashed at him. Crowley rolled his eyes. "Fine, Bob. Anyway, what do you want? I'm stuck here with you until you tell me what you want." It took a while, but in the end, Crowley was able to get out of the confused little implement the words home, floors, no carpet, no pet, no kids. By casting an eye around the contents of the home thus far, which included cat hair on the sofa and some toys in a box in the corner, he surmised that this was not the environment in which Bob was happy. He weighed his options. "Look, my place has concrete floors, no carpets anywhere, no pets, definitely no kids, not much furniture to get in the way either. Easy to clean. If I take you home with me, will you release me from my obligation? It will, however, mean that your newfound soul belongs to me for all eternity." Bob sat there, lights flashing speculatively for a little while. He then appeared to make up his mind and trundled toward Crowley, stopped in front of him, and beeped assent. Crowley unplugged the charging port and tucked it under his arm, tucked Bob under the other, then snapped his fingers, the accord breaking the summoning hold on him. The pair of them materialized in his That's the word that stops me. The pair of them materialized in his Mayfair apartment. He set Bob on the floor and waved his hand around in general. "Make yourself at home. I'll plug your charging port in here, then you can explore the rest of the place at your leisure. The plants are through there. Don't be nice to them. They'll only take advantage of you. Tell me if you find any dropped leaves and who they came from. Don't wake me before 11 a.m., and we'll get on just fine. If there's a towel on the doorknob, don't come knocking, okay?" Bob twirled around thoughtfully, then scooted to his charging port and settled down with a mechanical beep of contentment. He powered down and went to sleep. Crowley grabbed a marker pen and went to a corner of the study. He set about drawing an alphabet board on the floor, this time without any supernatural connotations, in case he needed to communicate with his new minion again. Aziraphale gazed at Crowley incredulously. He then glanced at Bob, humming happily around in the lounge, googly eyes wobbling with the vibration. He looked back at Crowley, who shrugged and gulped more coffee. "You'll get used to him," Crowley shrugged, as if that explained anything else that needed to be said. A few days later, Aziraphale was reading on the sofa when Bob trundled through, a plant in a pot being carried sedately around on top of him. Bob was careful to avoid going under low furniture while he had a passenger. The angel looked up from his book in confusion as Crowley followed Bob through from the plant room, observing the plant and vacuum combination. He noticed the angel's expression. "What?" "Crowley, why is there a plant on Bob?" Crowley shrugged. "It's been a good plant. Good plants get to go for a drive. Gives the others something to strive for. You said I should be nicer to them. This is me being nice. Problem?" He turned back to the plant room and yelled at the rest. "You see this? This is what happens then when you do a good job. You get a new car. Don't do a good job, and the rest of you lot get put in the garbage disposal unit." The angel rolled his eyes and went back to his book, pushing a little bit of raspberry Danish to one side of his plate to drop on the floor for Bob later. It's adorable. So, that was chapter 1. And there will be more. Let's see. I'll link it, obviously. Be sure to hit subscribe to get notified every Tuesday when a new chapter will go up. She has at least 10 already written to go, plus material for a few more. My gosh! Feel free to drop suggestions in the comments as to funny things the ineffable idiots can get up to with their new family member. So, thanks for joining me. Bye!